I went to Smith College. I graduated in 1971. It was the height of the feminist movement. The issue of women in Judaism was very troublesome to me. So when I came to Crown Heights to study, and the years after, this was a very big concern for me. One of the most profound things that I learned was the role of women in Hasidic philosophy and in Kabbalah, through the Rebbe's sichas and through learning there.
In der alle Mitzvahs, was Noshim und Bonne seine Mechuye, seine sehr Eichet, Scheiches und sie davon lernen. Der Halloch ist, was sein in der Mitzvah verbunden.
Fühlt man sich verstärkt.
Noshim und Bonne sollen lernen Pnimis Ateiro, Teiris Achasidus. Wie bald Adose der Derech, La Avose und Leirose, was Chiyuvon is a Chiyuv Tmidi, und Bechol Echot, sei Schorim, und seine Keves.
I started to write articles on this to help me work out the ideas. My first one was called The Jewish Woman 3 Steps Behind with a question mark. And I sent it in to the editor of a journal called Yiddish Shehem, The Jewish Home, which was put out by Neshei Chabad, the Jewish Women's Organization of Crown Heights. At that time, my uncle, who was very, very dear to me, was like a grandfather, got very, very ill. I sent in the essay to the woman editor, and at the same time, about a few weeks later, I wrote in to the Rebbe for a blessing for the recovery of my uncle. And right away, I got an answer from the Rebbe's secretary that the Rebbe would pray for my uncle's recovery. And then another very interesting line. I enjoyed your article in the forthcoming Yiddish Shehem. I thought, how did the Rebbe know that I wrote an article in the Yiddish Shehem about Judaism and feminism and that he enjoyed it? So the editor told me that the Rebbe had such a concern for women and for their activities, and so wanted to encourage them, that after she edited all the articles, he also went over them and edited them himself. So as a favor to me, she gave me back these manuscripts. Very interesting additions and subtractions that he made. I was astonished. I thought, how did he have the time to do this?
So my husband's very happy to report to the Rebbe that he has this wonderful shiur in Riverdale. Doe's finished with his spiel about his shiur. The Rebbe says, Doe, what do the women do during that time? So my husband says, oh, they prepare a wonderful Suda Shlishit, a whole meal. And the Rebbe says, Doe, that's not enough. The women need to learn too. So my husband comes home and he says to me, the Rebbe says you should teach a shiur. I said, Doe, what are you talking about? I'm a professional artist. Once upon a time, I taught Hebrew school. Teach a shiur? I'm not prepared to teach a shiur. Doe says, the Rebbe says you really should teach a shiur. You know, a shiur for women in Riverdale, a shiur in Mishnah, that would be nice.
Wenn gehe zu lernen Teile und wissen allein mit eigenem Sechel verstehen, was Teile will und was Teile verlangt und auf was Teile gibt Keach, sagt man, dass geworden Minna Gisrael Teile als von dort zu dort und in jeder Dorf von Jahr zu Jahr und im Jahr allein von Zeit zu Zeit kommt zu bei Frauen und bei Mädchen, Vaterchassen a viele, bis a viele bei gar kleine Mädchen, bei jeder von sie allein kommt zu, in Wissen, was in der steht.
So I said, all right, you prepare me, go over the Mishnah with me, and I'll try. After I started it in a private fashion, the rabbi of the Riverdale Jewish Center, which is the largest Orthodox synagogue in Riverdale, called and heard that I had been teaching a shiur to women, and he asked me to do it in the Masgaret of the synagogue. And we kept this study group going for 25 years.
והתחילה הצלחה גדולה בהרצאות שלו, שקראתי גם כמעט התפסת. ובשביל ההצלחה ללכת מחייל לחויל, ולהריס מחייל בשביל כל בני המשפחה, גם הנכדים.
It is not just that the Rebbe was responsible for these women learning Mishnah with me. It was that he was essentially responsible for me coming to a much higher level of Jewish learning that I would not have had otherwise.
He said in a very interesting talk he gave in 1990 on Lag BaOmer that what is the reason that the desire of women to learn came out now in our generation and not in earlier generations.
And you shall make for me.
Every generation has its revelation that's necessary for it. And we get further and further from Mount Sinai. The world is very dark. But he also points out you go further and further from Sinai, but you get closer and closer to Mashiach, to redemption.
And the center flame.
The closer you get,
I don't know if you're aware of
you start to get a little taste of it.
We're very narrow on the inside. And
In the Zchut of the righteous women, the Jews were redeemed from Egypt. The Rebbe would always quote that. I'd like to give the Rebbe a copy of my book that I just published because I wrote and I dedicated it to the Rebbe here. It's a critique of... I'm telling my story, but he related to every woman in her way.
Thank you very much.
Women have these tremendous spiritual and redemptive powers, and he harnessed them.
that's because the light from inside the temple emanated out.